Okay, first we're gonna just go through a quick opening that's misplayed by black and you can take quick advantage of them too. Sometimes you'll be playing an inexperienced player and he'll make a strange move and you might not know how to defeat it right away, just really quickly exploit it. You might be able to just get away with playing fundamental chess and still winning the game because he's probably not that good of a player, but you want to be able to get a huge advantage if your opponent's inexperienced and falters in the openings. So you play e4, standard move, comes back with e5, and you're going to play knight f3, just standard, and instead of protecting his e-pawn with a standard line opening move, he goes ahead and plays f6. It's a bad move. It's a really bad move. And you know, fundamental chess, you know, not looking at the attacking possibilities, you might go ahead and play d4 or just keep developing with knight c3 or bishop c4 on that nice diagonal he's opened up for you to attack his king. Instead, you just go ahead and take the pawn on e5 because he's giving up a free pawn. If he chooses to take it, you go ahead and play queen h5 check. If he moves his king to e7, you take the pawn on e5, and this game's pretty much over. He's got to move into that square where your bishop can go to c4 and hit it right on that good diagonal. So instead he blocks with g6. You then take the pawn on e5. Now he could block with a number of different things with the knight or the bishop, in which case he'll just take his rook and be far ahead in this game. His best move is queen e7. Now you're just going to go ahead and take the rook, and his best move would be to take on e4. Now lots of people kind of get scared by this move, even though they're up a rook. They say, oh, his queen's kind of invading my position, I have to block my king's check. So many people misunderstand that castling isn't like the most important thing in the world. King d1's a much better move than trying to keep your castle alive by playing bishop e2 and letting him come in on that g-pawn. King d1's a great move. You won't be able to castle, but you won't need it in this game. You're so far ahead. It protects the c2 pawn. Your g2 pawn's still safe. He can put you in check maybe with g4. You just play f3 and block it, and he has to retreat. And his knight's under attack. His pawn in h7 is under attack. And this game is just over. Now I just want to really quick go over what happens if instead of taking your knight with the pawn, which is a horrible move, he goes ahead and plays something else. If he blocks the bishop, it's a bad move because you can bring your queen to h5 and put him in check. And he would have to block with the pawn to avoid checkmate, in which case your knight could take the pawn. If he retakes the knight with his pawn, his rook's open, you get his rook. So he probably won't block with his bishop. He can block with the knight, which is a better move, but at the same time you're still up a pawn right here. You can just move it back to f3 and continue normal developing. You won the most important pawn in the game, in fact, his e-pawn. It's a central pawn and it's very strong. Now, if he plays queen to e7, you have to keep your advantage and just forget about this e-pawn. It's a good pawn, but the fact is that he's played f6, not a very strong move. You've developed a knight. You can bring it back to f3 perfectly fine. His queen comes in and takes your pawn. Yeah, sure. The game is technically tied if you're looking at, you know, who's got what. He has a pawn, you have a pawn. But the fact is, because of the tempo of the game, you now block with your bishop, and you've developed more pieces of him. You have two pieces developed. He just has his queen developed, and now when you develop your third knight to c3, his queen has to move away, giving you another tempo. And then you can play d4 and you have a strong control of the center and a great position.